I am very grateful for all the support received in this first week on the channel. Thank you all subscribers. Let's continue with these dark stories. I was home alone. It was the middle of summer and my parents had left for the weekend to go to our house in the Cape Cod. It was about a 2-hour drive away, so it's no big deal for them to leave me alone for a few days. My mom had made me some pulled pork and pasta for me to heat up whenever, and I had some money to order a pizza if I wanted to. Things were all good. The first night I was alone, I stayed up till 3 in the morning playing Xbox, so I woke up kinda late the next day. I checked my phone when I woke up and saw it was a little past 1. I had made plans to play some street hockey with my friends at 3, so I kinda threw myself out of bed and stumbled into the shower. I take really long showers, so when my parents are gone I go a bit mental. I was in there for about 45 minutes on my phone scrolling through Reddit and Twitter and whatever when I heard the front door open. The bathroom is directly up the stairs from the back door, and the thing is pretty loud whenever it opens and closes. I immediately froze, since obviously I was supposed to be alone. I waited for about 2 minutes, ears strained and trying to hear anything else. Nothing. I figured it was just the wind or maybe my parents were home early. So I turned off the shower and wrapped my towel around myself and slowly walked down the stairs to check it out. Stairs to the kitchen where the back door is are kind of tight and walled in a way where I can't exactly see into the kitchen while I'm going down them, but it's a long story. But regardless though, my house is kind of old, and despite that I tried so desperately to walk down my stairs, and yet each step made a very, very loud creak. I mean, I still took my time and tried to be as quiet as possible. I probably took like 45 seconds walking down all 12 of the stairs. So when I get to the second to last stair, right before I can see around the corner into my kitchen, I took a little breath to compose myself. In my mind, I knew I was being stupid. There obviously wasn't anything in the kitchen. There's no way I wouldn't have heard another noise, and there's no reason for them to even still be in the kitchen even if there were burglars or something in my house. After sort of mentally chastising myself for being such a wuss, I chuckled at myself for being so stupid and just normally walked down the last 2 stairs and turned the corner into the kitchen. And yet standing about 2 feet away from me in the middle of my kitchen is a man staring straight at me, perfectly still with a massive smile across his face, just staring at me. The thing I remember most vividly wasn't his face or his smile, but his arms. They weren't just at his side. He held them in the strangest, most abnormal position I've ever seen. They were where one would normally hold their arms, but he rotated them to the point where they were almost completely reversed, even had them lifted up and a little behind himself. I don't know why I remember this so much, but it was just so abnormal I don't get it. Honest to God, I think I almost had a heart attack right there. I mean, looking back now, I can realize how fucking creepy the situation was. But in the moment, I just took a step toward him and punched him as hard as I could in the jaw, sort of half slapping and pushing him towards the ground. The second I connected, I beelined up the stairs, dropping my towel in the kitchen with my heart beating out of control. I fucking sprinted into my room and locked the door behind me, and then I put my chair up against the doorknob like you see in TV. Almost without thinking, I immediately called 911. And nearly in tears, I told the operator what had happened. As I sat on the floor of my room, I was in a fetal position, staring at the door praying that a cop would be here soon. When I noticed the light coming from the gap between my door had stopped, the fucker was standing outside my door, and there's no words to describe the feeling I had. I was paralyzed with fear, just watching the shadow across the bottom of the door shift in tiny ways. I stayed balled up, staring at the gap, praying that that man would go away for what seemed like an hour. All the while the 911 operator was asking, "Hello, sir, are you there? Hello?" But I didn't want to make a noise, and even if I wanted to move my arms to bring the phone to my mouth, I don't think I could have. Eventually the light returned to the gap, and I heard the faintest of footsteps, slowly creaking down the wooden floorboards as he walked down the hall. He was silent for minutes, and I just sat there curled up, unable to even speak. Soon after, I heard banging on the front door and the sound of 2 officers entering my house. I finally felt safe, and I opened the door to the 2 of them and stood there almost crying. Nowadays, my parents don't even leave me alone anymore. Thank God. And I check every lock in the house now before going to bed. I'll get nightmares occasionally, and my heart starts racing whenever I see someone standing still. But I'm doing all right. I'm doing all right. Even working with sketch artists and a few lineups, the police never found who the fuck was in my house. The following events took place around early December of 2015. It was late at night in Washington state. I wasn't home alone for these events. Although at the time they occurred, I was the only one awake in my house.
1 Uhr nachts.
So I'll start by saying that my family has 3 cats. They'll often stay out late, making it my responsibility to make sure that they're in as I'm the last one to go to sleep. When our one cat, Nellie, wants to come in at night, she'll scratch her claws on the sliding screen door located behind our sliding glass door. The aforementioned door is located in the family room, the room with the TV, and the room I'm usually in late at night just hanging out alone flipping channels and whatnot. Oddly enough, I was watching a video about deep web horror stories. I hear what I think is my cat scratching on the screen door, ready to come in. I get up, make the short 7-foot walk from the couch to the door to let her in. I open the door, expecting to see her bolt into the house as usual, but she's not there. "Nellie, come on in," I call childishly. When she doesn't appear to be there, I flip on the porch light and see nothing on the patio. No cat. I look up and, just 50 feet away, I see a tall, lanky, very disturbed-looking man standing near the fence line of my yard. I kind of squint and smirk and I look in confusion. It didn't take long before confusion turned into sheer terror. The man is not moving, not even acknowledging the fact that he has been discovered by me. Completely unresponsive to the encounter, almost as if he felt he was invited there openly. I instantly slam the door and run to my parents' room to wake up my parents and tell them what I just saw. It takes about a minute or two for them to become coherent and truly understand what I'm saying to them. My dad gets out of bed and scans the yard from inside. The man is gone, tired and annoyed. My dad assures me it was my imagination and goes back to bed. I was a little angered I wasn't taken more seriously, as I know what I had seen. 1:15 a.m. 15 minutes after I first saw this man initially, curiosity got to me. I find myself looking out the door once more. Sure enough, I see the man yet again. I drop my glass of water right into the ground and I freeze in fear as my heart falls with my glass. This man is standing in my damn treehouse, up against the balcony, hands on the rail staring at me. There are a few things in particular that make this so uncomfortable. 1. This man had to be nearing 7 foot tall, yet he's incredibly bony and skinny, making his body look incredibly disproportionate. 2. I just can't see a face. I'm serious, this man's face from my point of view looked solid black. I was scared, yet so confused. I was truly puzzled. I go to my parents' room and wake them up yet again. This time, I'm taken more seriously. My mother calls 911. A sheriff's deputy shows up about 30 minutes later and looks around. He finds nothing and assures us that this man that I've seen has left, but I don't have the same feeling. After the deputy leaves, it's about 2 a.m. and by 2:15 my parents are back in their bed and I'm still on the couch in the family room. 2:25 a.m. I hear a loud bang coming from the window, which I'll put a picture of on screen right now. If you look in the picture, you'll see a stained glass picture hanging from the window. This bang was so loud and forceful that that picture was swung back and forth. Again, I awake my parents and we huddle in the family room together in fear, not knowing what to do next. When all of a sudden, bang, the bang happens again, just inches from us standing there. Whoever this is must be one bold son of a bitch, we're all thinking. We turn on the porch light seconds after and the man is gone. Damn it. We call the police yet again, and after an hour and a half, 3 sheriff's deputies are now here. They look around. Well, there's nothing here, they say. Well, no shit, this happened almost 2 hours ago, we're all thinking. After this, we all give up and decide to try and get some sleep. What we found in our yard the next morning was chilling and just so uncomfortable. Footprints. But these footprints weren't normal footprints. The attached images on screen right now are the actual photos taken that morning. They were about a foot long each. Very narrow and no tread. That's what was the weirdest part. You'd think that the imprint of the shoes would be left. Nope, flat. What was also strange was that the area where the prints are, there were a lot of leaves. Yet where his feet were, they appear to be gone. Very eerie. Although I never saw the man after this, we did find another incredibly creepy piece of evidence. Our house crawl space. A crawl space is a small hole located around the perimeter of your house that leads underneath your house. maybe around 5 feet wide, usually covered by a wooden sheet. Well, ours was clearly tampered with after that night. Pretty severely. It was moved, uncovered, and tossed around. Keep in mind, this cover is heavy and on top of it was our wheelbarrow. Not an easy setup to rearrange. Anyways, we haven't seen this man again or had signs of his presence. I still live in slight fear of finding him. What makes it so strange is that whoever this was wasn't at all deterred by being discovered nor scared off by the presence of law enforcement. We've nicknamed this intruder Thin Man. I hope I never see him again. Growing up, I was raised in rural Michigan. There was hardly anything to do. If you like staring at trees and crops and lots of alone time, that was the place to be. I got out of there as soon as I got a car and enough money to move. I'm not a nature hater or anything, but I'd pick being by a big city any day. My parents don't own that property anymore. They sold it 5 years ago, but to describe it, it was a 3-acre property. The house itself was pretty big, and there was a storage building out back. I was 13 when this happened. My parents would leave me alone often at this age. They trusted me because I matured at a young age and I had responsibilities on the property. It was a weekend, and I was playing Vice City on my PS2 in the living room, when suddenly, a loud metallic bang came from outside somewhere in the yard. I right away ran to every window I could to look outside to see if I could see something, and I didn't see anything until I got to the window looking out to the storage building out back. The door to it was completely open. I went immediately to grab the rifle from the closet and go outside. I made my presence known, shouting who's in there to no avail. When I got to the door, I made it known I had a gun before looking inside. There was a bunch of stuff in there, from the sit-down mower to the quad to infinite little lawn care items. Someone could have been hiding behind any of that stuff. Even as a kid, I didn't scare easily, but at that moment I got really unsettled, and so I closed the door to the building and went back inside the house. I locked the door and then sat at the window for the longest time, watching the storage building, expecting the door to open at any second. That door was heavy and impossible to just open by itself. It was simply a fact that someone came and opened it. Whether they were still inside of the building, I wasn't sure. I decided to go call my dad and ask his opinion. I went to the kitchen to the landline phone and called my dad's cell phone. He didn't pick up, so I left a voicemail. This was back when you'd still have to leave someone a voicemail because texting wasn't mainstream. After that, I went back to sitting next to the window, but now I put on a TV show in the background to make this less monotonous. I took the phone with me. I was probably about to give up when I heard creaks from upstairs. My heart was now in my throat. I had to ask myself the big question. Was I working myself up, or was someone here? I had a serious guard dog mentality. Even if I didn't love that place, I saw it as mine, my family's. I had to protect it, but I was in over my head. I grabbed the rifle again and walked upstairs. I didn't say anything. Calling out would only make a potential intruder know that I heard them. I made it to the top of the stairs, and I turned on the light for the upstairs hallway. There were 5 doors to open, all of them closed. 4 led to bedrooms, 1 led to the bathroom. Each door had a decently large crack underneath that would allow you to see under. The creak in the ceiling I heard moments earlier came from the side of the house my parents' bedroom was on. So I got down on my knees and looked under the crack of the door, and I saw 2 bare feet facing the other side of the door. I felt my stomach twist into a knot. The reality of the situation just became so much more real, and I realized I wasn't ready to threaten or, God forbid, shoot someone. I got up and quickly went downstairs, and I hid in the bathroom to call my dad. He still didn't pick up. I left another voicemail, and then I called again and again. He never picked up. He must have had his phone set down somewhere. I finally called 911, as I should have done right away, and I whispered into the phone the whole time detailing exactly what was taking place. I was told to sit tight in the bathroom and not say a word. I heard footsteps coming down the stairs, and then they approached the bathroom door as if whoever it was somehow knew I went straight to the bathroom. The footsteps stopped outside the door, and there was a brief pause before a deep voice said, "What's up, kid?" I still remember the voice and those words so vividly. If I heard that voice today, I'd still recognize it immediately. I almost wanted to cry. That's how scared I was. I disobeyed what the operator told me and I spoke. I said loud and clear, "I'm on the phone with the cops right now, and I have a gun." I put the operator on speaker as she was asking me if everything's okay. The man attempted to open the door, and when he realized it was locked, I heard him walk away. I heard the footsteps fade to silence, and then the sound of a door slamming. It was the sound of the back door. I'm sure I breathed a sigh of relief, and from there on, I waited for the police to arrive. When they did, I felt like £1,000,000 just lifted off my shoulders. After a thorough inspection of the house inside and out, confirming that the man was gone, they asked if there was anywhere else I could stay that night, and I said yes, my uncle's house. We contacted my uncle, who came and spoke with the police. Then he took me back to his place. The thing that haunts me the most is that it was my fault. I could have prevented this. I left the door unlocked as I went to the storage building to investigate. Clearly, that's when the man simply walked right into the house. Even with a rifle in my hands, I didn't feel safe at all. It was truly the most horrific experience of my life. I was 18 when my parents went away on a week-long anniversary trip. My sister had already moved out by this point, so I had to hold the fort. My parents' property is enclosed by woods and a dirt driveway leading to the road. The road is a quiet back road with equally sized properties running alongside it. All of them separated a decent distance, so it's a really isolated feel up there. Everyone in town knows each other. You see familiar faces all the time for the most part. At the gas station, at the grocery store, at the bars, which I'd learn a few years later when I started going to them. Speaking of gas stations, this story starts one day while my parents were away. I was at a gas station filling up my tank when a black Jeep Cherokee pulled up to the pump next to mine. A man with a goatee stepped out, greeted me, and started filling his tank. In that town, it was normal for strangers to greet each other like that. He had his nozzle locked into the gas tank, and then he walked around to my side of the pump and went, "Excuse me, do you know how to get to the interstate from here?" I helped him to the best of my ability. He pulled out a notepad and started writing down the directions I gave him. Very odd how he wouldn't just do that on his cell phone like anyone else would. He thanked me and asked if I'm from the area. I said, "Yeah, I grew up here," and he said he's from out of town. He didn't specify where. He then went back to his side and put the nozzle back in the pump. He then asked my name as he said, "It's nice meeting you." I said, "My name's Kate." He said, "What a lovely name," and then got in his car as I got into mine. I drove out first and turned left to go up the road back home. It was only a few minutes worth of driving before I was approaching our turn into the driveway. I slowed down and put my blinker on, then turned right onto the property. It was at that moment that I noticed the car behind me was that same black Jeep Cherokee. He passed me as I turned into our driveway. He went the complete opposite way that I told him to go to get to the interstate. As he passed me, he didn't slow down or anything, so it seemed that maybe he just forgot the directions I gave him and went the wrong way. I let myself inside and went about the rest of my day doing whatever. I think it was that night that I was going out to meet up with my friends that I stepped outside and walked to my car and heard the sound of footsteps nearby. Like I said, the house is enclosed by woods, and this was in the middle of the summertime. Could have been any number of animals, so I didn't investigate. I just got in my car and left. But when I got back home hours later and walked from my car to the house, a man's voice from out somewhere in the woods called out, "Kate." I got the chills as I looked around, and then in a panic, rushed to open the front door. I slammed it shut and sat on the couch to breathe. The neighbors all knew my name, but the houses are not on top of each other, so it's a bit of a walk, and there was no reason for one of them to call my name like that, like a creep, and not identify themselves. I decided to call my parents to tell them, and their explanation was the neighbors, and they'll probably knock on the door. I didn't tell them about the encounter at the gas station. The next day, which was a Saturday, I stayed home most of the day, and later that night, I once again was going out to meet with my friends. After getting ready and everything, I went outside, and as I was walking to my car, I heard loud and clear from the not-so-far distance, someone call Kate again. This time, I didn't wait a second. I ran back inside the house and locked the door again. I called 911 this time, texting my family while doing so. After 2 cops showed up to the house, they looked around the perimeter of the property with their flashlights. then came back and said to call again if this persisted. I didn't feel much better after this. It's not really like they did much. I refrained from going outside until the next day when I had work. I was a late shift. I left the house in broad daylight, paranoid to hear that voice again. Thankfully, though, I didn't. Maybe seeing the police car finally scared them off. After many hours at work, I was ready to go home and collapse into bed. I pulled onto the property, parked my car out front, and walked to the front door. I stopped when I heard the sound of footsteps again. It didn't sound like an animal's footsteps, though. I stood on the front deck for a second, waiting, and then that familiar voice yelled out again saying, "Hey, don't call the cops on me again, cutie." I yelled out, "You need help, you're sick," and let myself inside. I called the cops once more, and the cops came again, searched the perimeter again, and left. My parents told me I should stay at a friend's house for the night. I couldn't agree more. They would be back the following night, so after that I would feel much safer being there. My friend Alex told me I could stay with her that night, so I packed a bag and was ready to go. I checked out the windows first to make sure the coast was clear. I then went outside and locked the door as fast as I could, then ran to the car. As I turned the key in the ignition, I heard something right to my left. Right outside the driver's side door was a man wearing a face mask trying to open the door. I couldn't even scream. I felt like I was choking on air. As I put the car in drive, he started hitting the glass with his elbow. I looped my car around on the grass and sped down the driveway, and I turned right up the road and didn't stop until I got to Alex's house. I was hysterically crying the whole drive there as I had Alex and her dad on the phone with me. He said he would have come and picked me up had he known the situation. We called the police together for a third time in total. A couple officers went to my parents' house to investigate again, make sure no windows were shattered or anything. One officer came to Alex's house, where I once again gave my description of what happened. This was probably the most action these cops had seen in a long time in this quiet town. Thankfully, my parents came home the next day, and I felt safe staying at home again. I fully believe the man at the gas station followed me home intentionally and scoped the place out, realizing I was by myself and for whatever reason toyed with me until he actually tried to pounce and get me. I shouldn't have given my real name, and I should have been more alert to my surroundings and realized he was following me in my car that day. Some people are nuts and have way too much time on their hands. This incident was a huge motivating factor in my moving out to my own apartment a few months later. I was home alone one night for a reason I don't remember. All I remember is my entire family was gone.